I was born in the Bay Area in the early 80s. When I look back, I remember a life that moved at a slower, simpler, and more deliberate pace. It was a life where the world felt big, safe, and full of heroes. My childhood was measured by the giants who walked the earth at Candlestick Park. I grew up in the golden glow of the 49ers dynasty, an era that truly ignited with Joe Montana and the catch. I can still feel the grit of watching Will Clark at first base and the electric hum across the bay as the Smash Brothers, Jose Canseco, and Mark McGwire stood like titans over the plate in Oakland. We'd trade baseball cards on the playground, arguing over stats like they were gospel because in that version of California, everything felt like it was winning. On the weekends, we lived for the sourdough at Pier 39 and the endless mind-bending hallways of the Exploratorium at the Palace of Fine Arts. We knew the wooden rattle of the Santa Cruz Boardwalk, the cool mist of the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and the pure adrenaline of Great America in Santa Clara. We'd pack the car for Disneyland and fly down Highway 5, eyes glued to the clock to see if we could hit Anaheim in exactly 6 hours, a rite of passage for every California kid. But some of my favorite memories happened as we headed north and east. We'd always stop in Old Town Sacramento walking the wooden planks in awe of those massive vintage steam engines at the Rail Museum, feeling the history of the iron. From there, we'd make our way to Lake Tahoe, the anchor of our summers, and the place we'd escape to in the winter for skiing. Or we'd head to Sonora, down in gold country, crouched over a stream panning for gold, feeling like we were part of the story of the West. The weather back then was a mild Mediterranean dream. Neighbors were friends. Tech giants like IBM, HP, and Apple were still just names in garages. Schools were the heart of the community, where Friday night lights actually meant something. You could go into downtown San Francisco and just be amazed by the financial district, the Presidio, the Coit Tower, and the constant comforting jangle of the trolley cars. As I moved into the 90s and graduated from high school and college, that fabric remained intact. I was learning to be on my own, staying local, but the California I knew hadn't moved. Now, I was the one behind the wheel. I was driving to those same places, Tahoe, Santa Cruz, the city, with my friends. We were creating our own versions of the traditions our parents gave us. I watched the last of the orchards and the farmland in Livermore and Gilroy give way to development, but the spirit stayed. We were still camping in the redwoods of Big Basin, water skiing on the glass of Lake Shasta, and driving through the Central Valley to find the giants in Sequoia National Forest. The economy was growing, and affordability still felt like a reality. It was a golden world, and it was home. But no season lasts forever. The first cracks appeared when the dot-com bubble burst. I remember the air changing. The arrogance of the 90s tech boom turned into a cold realization. It was the start of a slow, painful separation between the ultra-wealthy and the middle class that had built the state. During the 2000s, the Bay Area evolved. More cultures came in, which brought a wave of ethnic food I'd never had before, and I really enjoyed that energy. But beneath the surface, the math of adulthood was becoming a monster. I landed my first real job at a startup in the late 2000s. I was sitting at a desk in the epicenter of global wealth, and yet I was still living in my childhood bedroom. I wasn't making enough to even dream of a down payment. I watched my friends getting married and starting their journeys, while I felt like I was running on a treadmill, moving faster than my legs could go. When I finally married in late 2008, we were starting our life just as the world hit a financial wall. I realized housing prices were completely out of reach unless I committed to a soul-crushing 3-hour daily commute just for a patch of dirt. I was making more than my father ever had at my age, but I couldn't afford to leave the house I grew up in. The disconnect was dizzying. Then in 2009, the market crashed. We finally bought our first home in 2012. We thought we had beat the system, that the crash was our invitation back into the dream, but the reality was a slow-motion trap. The prices hadn't just rebounded, they had mutated. We were finally homeowners, but the house owned us. We were house poor for years, tethered to a 1,400 square foot box that demanded every spare cent and every ounce of our mental margin just to stay afloat. The reality of that 1,400 square foot house settled in quickly. It wasn't just the mortgage. It was the property taxes that crept up with every bond measure, the endless upkeep, and the soaring utilities. For years, we were living on the edge of a knife. Then the kids came and my heart shifted. You stop looking at your own life and start looking at theirs. And that's when the grief really set in. I looked at my children and felt a profound sense of generational theft. My parents weren't tech executives, yet they gave us the world. I was working at the top of my field, making a salary that should have meant freedom, yet I was checking my bank account before buying anything. I was trying to buy them a childhood that didn't exist anymore. I looked at the schools I grew up in and didn't recognize them. The excellence was replaced by pushing kids through the system. We moved them to private school, just another massive bill. I was effectively paying for the memory of an education that used to be a free public birthright. Then came the 1,000 cuts. PG&E raised rates 10 times greater than inflation. I remember staring at a bill that looked like a second mortgage and feeling the air leave my lungs. Gas hit $5. Car registration was now costing us hundreds. Sales tax hit 10%. Every raise I earned was swallowed by the cost of existing. But it wasn't just the money. It was the physical soul of the neighborhood being rewritten. The single-family home was disappearing. I'd look out my window and see driveways overflowing and streets lined with cars because adult children or elderly parents had nowhere else to go. I watched as neighborhoods from the 60s, 70s, and 80s were transformed. 5-story, 400-unit apartments were dropped onto quiet streets. New laws allowed ADUs in every backyard, and it changed the DNA of our community. The quiet court where I wanted my kids to ride their bikes was suddenly a parking lot. It wasn't just the cars, it was the loss of the sky. The Mediterranean dream was being walled in. Your backyard became a fishbowl. Quality of life was deteriorating. Graffiti, homelessness, and RVs lined the streets. The pride of ownership was vanishing. I was working harder than ever just to watch my sanctuary fall apart. The California dream I grew up in was officially out of stock. The momentum was picking up. More and more people I knew were gone until Christmas Eve, 2020. We were at my in-laws having dinner, trying to find a moment of peace. Then my phone buzzed. It was a call from my neighbor. "Don't come home," he said. "The court is closed. There's a SWAT team in front of one of the rental units." In that moment, the dinner, the lights, the holiday, it all faded. I knew exactly which house it was. I had watched that property transition from a family home to a revolving door of high-priced rentals. That moment hit me like a ton of bricks. We were grinding our lives away to live in a place where we didn't even feel safe on our own street. I looked across the table at my wife, then at my kids, and I realized I couldn't justify it anymore. I looked at her and said, "That's it. We're done." Once the decision was made, I knew I wasn't just looking for a new city. I was looking for a time machine. I wanted to find a place that modeled the era I grew up in. I looked at the cities that had already made it. I watched what happened in Austin, Texas. For years, everyone pointed there as the promised land. But by the time I looked, that boom had already peaked. Austin had become California 2.0. The same congestion, the same skyrocketing costs. I didn't want to move into a finished story. We decided Nashville, Tennessee was our next stop. I saw Nashville as a trendy city on the verge of its own massive explosion, but it was sitting exactly where Austin was 10 years ago. It offered the opportunity that California had deleted. But it wasn't just about the now. What Nashville offered was an amazing sense of opportunity for employment. A market with so much depth that I knew I would never run out of options. I needed a place where the sky was the limit, where if one door closed, 10 more were waiting to be opened. We were looking for purchasing power that had become a myth in the Bay Area. We wanted a place where our hard work would actually manifest in the quality of our home, the size of our yard, and the safety of our streets. We were hunting for a community that still valued the single-family dream, the kind of place where neighbors actually looked out for one another and where the neighborhood feel wasn't being bulldozed for high-density profits. But making the choice was the easy part. Living it out was where the reality set in. I remember sitting in our living room in California, looking at our 2 kids, and then at each other, and the weight of the plan finally hit us. My job said no to the transfer, no safety net, no paycheck waiting for us in Tennessee. To make this work, we had to burn the ships. We had to quit our jobs, put our home on the market, and move 2,000 miles away into the complete unknown. We were about to walk away from everything we had ever known with no guarantee that Nashville would want us back. I looked at my wife and said, "Oh my God, what are we doing?" In the next video, I'm going to show you how we handled the what now, the logistics, the job hunt, and the moment we realized there was no turning back. See you in the next one.